We learn about everything else in the world except how to maintain and operate this right here. The most important piece of equipment you're ever issued in your entire life that you can't buy a new one, trade it in, lease it. This is it. This is all you get.
Welcome to Mindset Lessons from the Field. I'm Gina Cazazza, the author of Training with the SEAL. You guys can start reading chapters of Training with the SEAL on Substack right now. I'm really excited about today's guest. He is a man who refused to accept it's all in your head. After years of service in special forces, battling invisible wounds, toxic exposures, and the mental grind of transition, he turned pain into purpose. He took ownership of his health, rebuilt from the inside out, and now leads a mission helping warriors reclaim their lives through a functional, human-first approach to healing. Guys, I'm really excited. Oh my God, this is so my jam. From the battlefield to the Cleveland Clinic to the front lines of special operations wellness, this is what it means to fight smarter, not just harder. Ladies and gentlemen, Geoff Dardia. Geoff, thank you so much for being on the show.
No, thanks for having me. It's going to be great. Like I said, pumped to be here and get the message out. So thank you.
I'm really excited to talk to you. And of course, I want to get into what I want to talk about, but I do want our listeners to get to know you a little bit. So talk about how you ended up in Special Forces, where you were, what you did, and then we'll go into the transition out into that other fun stuff.
Yeah, so since a young age, I always knew what I was going to do, go be a commando. Originally started with going to be a frogman, right? Or the BUDS contract in the Navy straight out of high school, and then went through training during Hell Week. I got pretty sick, pneumonia and cellulitis like everyone else. Got pumped full of a drug back then, didn't know what it was, but fluoroquinolones. Those caused a little bit of tendon ligament nerve damage for certain people with genetic predispositions, which I didn't find out till later in 2015 when I got tested for MTHFR. But I had a severe adverse reaction to those meds. And after Hell Week, I was going all the way through training, all the way to phase 3. But I was progressively getting sicker and sicker and sicker all the way through training. And then my body started disintegrating on me. Had no idea what it was. Towards the end of training with a few weeks left, got dropped from training and then medically discharged out of the Navy with no backup plan. And I completely tied my entire identity to what I was going to be, right? When that didn't work out, not in a good place, figure out later in life what your biggest curse could be your biggest blessing. At that time, a little bit of a redirection, but it actually shaped everything I'm doing now. Talking about transition programs, health and wellness, and all those things, and learning how to advocate for yourself. So worst thing in my life ended up turning out to be the best thing in my life. So it's one of those lessons. I'll take it.
Let's talk about being in the thick of that, though, because, yeah, it's easy to see it now and be like, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, right? But
Yeah.
in the middle of it, you're just like, I can't see this, right? So how did you transition to at least moving forward, right? How did you get to acceptance, and what was that like for you? And then where did you go from there?
Yeah, so after I got out of the Navy, I was in San Diego, and I was like, I can't stay out here. Probably not a good environment to be.
Skills. Yeah.
I grew up in a small town, Maine, southern Maine, and completely different environment out there, fast and easy, right? And I knew I had to get out of that environment or I would not be in a good position. So I went back to the East Coast, went back to Maine where I grew up. I was a 60, 80% disabled vet. Didn't want to be a disabled vet, but I was going back to college, worked for Red Bull. I had a small little business and managed a little surf shop. And by everyone else's standards, I was living the life, right? But for me, it was a massive void. I didn't finish what I started, and I was like, get me the hell out of here. I need to go back and do what I'm doing. And so I had to figure out what was going on. I had no idea what PTSD-like symptoms, gut was all messed up, skin peeling off me, fingernails, toenails. Like I was falling apart. I was wrecked and I had no idea why. Full of inflammation and my nervous system was fried. And I had pushed myself so far in training, I was literally going to go until I was dead. My nervous system didn't thank me for that. So, I never got PTSD from war, so to speak. I got PTSD from getting ripped out of that environment without, being ready for that. It was a massive loss. Talking about moral injury, right? At that age, like you said, it wasn't like, oh, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. I saw myself as a complete failure. I was the almost SEAL. Everyone's like, oh, you went through almost all the training. And I was like, yeah, cool story, bro. But no, no one wants to be half anything or 3/4 or 90%. It's like, that's what I wanted to do. So I was like, I got to go back. I got to figure out what happened, regroup, come up with a new strategy, and then re-engage this, right? And back in the time, my buddy gave me a book, which was Napoleon Hill's book, Think, Grow Rich. And I've always had a pretty strong mindset. I was like, I'll always get where I need to go. There's nothing ever going to stop me once I have my mind on those things. I was like, all right, I just need to tweak a few things and make sure I'm doing things for the right reason, not tying my identity to this. Make sure you give back if you're able to go back and do those things again. And that's literally what I did. I strategized everything, put it all on paper, put all my goals, my steps, and what I was going to do in return to give back. And that was help those that are going through the same types of thing I was, right? Find out that's got a program for it now, help the military stand up a couple of programs for transition and human performance and wellness. But I got it, man. I understand what it's like to have your mission, purpose, focus, and identity ripped away from you. And I was in a very bad spot, contemplating life. And I just knew that was never the option, right? I was like, I'm not going to give up on anything. I never have. Why would I do it now? But I can completely understand why people take their own lives and get to that point. But again, if you're able to sit through that pain and suffering, that's where growth comes from, right? And at the time, it might suck, but you go back and look at anything great in your life that you've ever accomplished, it wasn't easy. And it wasn't like you didn't work for it or it didn't have some type of pain or discomfort, right? And so after that, once I figured out my purpose and my gift, nothing could stop me. I was, steadfast. I don't care what anybody said or, people talking shit or what do you know or all those things. It was just like, okay, I know I was put on this planet. I'm charging forward with this. And I came back in the Army. I was told you'll never, for about 20 different things, but you'll never make it back in the military. You'll never make it in the special operations. If you literally was told this, if you still want to go to war and shoot people, you can go join the post office, but you're not coming in the Army. It was one of those things. I was like, yeah, okay, cool story, bro. Like I got in. I'll leave that story for another day. I got plenty of other podcasts about that, but I got myself back in with a special forces contract, and I've been going nonstop since May of 2003. Just retired back in April. So, took everything I learned from that experience and then implemented it in what I did in the Army, and then actually had to utilize all of those strategies when I started getting sick again from more exposures. And we'll talk about that if you want as well.
Yeah. So I want to talk about how long did it take you from when you were at that low point, of getting let go from your dream of being a SEAL to regaining a new purpose and moving on that track? How long would you say that was for you?
I think it was about 2 years.
2 years.
I just literally, when I got back, I was like, I grew up in nature, surfing, mountain biking, skiing, doing all those things. And that was the first thing I did when I got back was just go back out in nature and unplug. Thank God we didn't have social media like we do now. But it was just like unplugged from all that and got back out in the sun, in the ocean, in the mountains, and just got away from all the pills. VA was like polypharma, pharmacide is what I call it. But I was just getting massive amounts of pill bottles sent to me with anti-inflammatories, pain meds. I was like, I don't want this shit. Antibiotics, that's what got me sick in the first place. I just got back to the basics. I couldn't, when I got out of the Navy, I was in a leg cast and I couldn't do push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups or anything. Every joint in my body was arthritic or tendonitis. It took me just doing nothing except getting out in nature and laughter, like doing fun stuff and trying to forget. I was distracting myself. I was at the point where I wasn't sleeping. I could go for a week or maybe more sometimes without sleeping, maybe an hour or two. And I was just insomnia. And then once I started getting back to the beach, getting in the ocean, putting my feet in the sand and doing all those things, everything started getting better. I started going right back to baseline where I used to be. Once I was able to do that pain free, I had arthritis in my hip at 20 years old. But once I started doing everything all over again, my body started responding appropriately. And then I was like, okay, when I came back in the military, I was never going to have to live up to the same standard that I came from coming through BUD/S. And I was just like, give me a chance. I'll do anything you got in the Army. And I was fortunate enough to do that. But, fast forward when I started my Army career, I was fine. Like my body was doing good. And it wasn't until I was forced to take certain medications again, mefloquine, which is one molecule away from a fluoroquinolone, I started having problems again. All those things started resurfacing. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then all the toxic exposures and blast overpressure, my health started to decline rapidly again. And I'm like, oh, not this again. But I was able to advocate for myself this time and I didn't hide it. I didn't like not tell anybody what I was going through. I was like, hey man, I'm going through this. And then imagine that, being a Green Beret, telling the doctors the truth, and they're like, yeah, right, bud, whatever. What are you trying to get from us? I was asked repeatedly, like, are you trying to get disability? Are you trying to get a med board? And I was like, dude, I've already been medically discharged out of the military. I just gave everything. My first 6 months in the military, I didn't get paid because I had to pay back all my disability and severance pay and all that stuff, and my voc rehab for college. So I didn't get paid for the first 6 months in the military. And I was like, dude, I don't want any of this shit. I just want to prevent from what happened to me before from happening again. And once I was able to convey that, people were like, oh, you're not trying to be a malingerer. You're not trying to get these things. I'm like, no. I was like, I don't want to be disabled anything. I want to stay on a team. And so I had to learn to speak their language, and I had to get them to understand, just like a Green Beret would do, right? Build that rapport, that trust, and get people to work for you. And I just applied everything I knew as a Green Beret to medicine and health and wellness, and I was able to get the same outcomes, right? And it's getting people to understand a problem, simplifying what people think is a highly complex issue into something that's really not, and getting people how to understand their physiology. Psychology and physiology, they're connected, right? They're not separate. And once you do that, people were like, oh, I know why I feel this way. It's a response. And if I'm exposed to X, Y, and Z in the environment, these are knowns. I'm not crazy. This is a response to what I'm being exposed to. Once people do that, it's like a weight off the shoulders. And that's when I learned it. For me, it was like a boat anchor was lifted off of me. I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like, this is why I feel this way. And this is what it is. And this is what I can do to protect myself. That's risk management. And I was like, okay, we have all these systems in place for all our equipment in the military. We don't have it for us. And was able to take those principles and frameworks of risk management, mission planning, mission analysis, and military decision-making process, and turned it into health and wellness. And come to find out, there was a form of medicine out there that's pretty much set up the same way, which is functional medicine.
So let's talk about when you first got, again, like medically discharged, right? You're from the Navy.
Yeah.
Like, and you mentioned that, like, toenails falling off, like, muscle deterioration, like all this stuff. Like, were you seeing somebody at that time? Were you seeing doctors? Were you seeing anybody? It was just new. So when did you like go, okay, I need to get some help, or something is going on? And then if you were like, I need to get some help, how receptive were they to the help, and how did you end up healing, and how long did that healing was the healing more than 2 years or less than 2 years? Because you meant finding your new purpose, you said, was 2 years. So how long was the healing for all this?
It was the same. It was literally, I can remember the night. Literally, once I understood what PTSD was and what I was going through, it's like the light bulb went off and I was released from it. It was like, oh, okay, I know what this is and why I feel this, right? Because of the loss I incurred. And I'm like, all right, all I got to do is reprocess that. I didn't have the manual for this. I didn't read any books about it. I was just like, I know why I feel this way and what has happened to me. And after that point, my nervous system calmed down again. And I wasn't having the reoccurring dreams. And I wasn't feeling like, like the whole world was against me. It was, hey, man, like, don't be a victim to this friggin' thing. Like, go back, do what you wanted to do, and have a backup plan. Don't tie your identity to what this is. But just know that, you have to overcome adversity. That's post-traumatic growth. That's when I learned about post-traumatic growth. Didn't even know there was a term for it then, but it's exactly what I did. And it's like the nightmares went away, that feeling went away of inadequacy or being a failure. And it was just like, okay, I got my confidence back. I can do this. That was a turning point. Once my nervous system calmed down, the physiological followed. But I can tell you right now, if your nervous system is stuck in a hyper-aroused, hyper-vigilant, responsive state, your body's going to be catabolic. It's going to be full of inflammation and breaking down. And that's exactly what it's designed to do for survival, right? I learned that. And imagine that coming into the military the second time and having those answers to the test, so to speak. It was like, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to be recovering on the weekends, not doing dumb stuff. Don't put alcohol in your body. I quit drinking alcohol until I graduated the Q course for SF. I didn't touch a drop. And that really helped me. It was a lesson learned, going to San Diego, going through buds. It was like expected you to go out on the weekends and party and have fun with your bros. But it's like, knowing what I know now, I would not even consider it. I'd be drinking protein and pro-resolve mediators and sleep. And ice baths and, like being in the sun. But back then we had no clue what any of this was. So it was just one of those things where it's like, okay, I know what I need to be doing now. And like I said, never looked back since.
How hard is it for you? I feel like within society these days that there is there's a stigma, around, especially when it comes to like, well, there's about with health and being the advocate for your own health. What do you know? You didn't go to
What are your
like
credentials?
medical school, right? Where'd you get your degree, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is like they also, I feel like with insurance and stuff, it's like, well, they have to sign off on certain things. And it's like, well, you need to go to this doctor and this doctor and this doctor has to sign off on this. And then they're like, no, we don't think you need that test. But it's like, no, that's the test I want. When I was doing, what do you know? Where'd you get your degree? Right. And then they want to give you all these medicines. And then you're like, I want to take that. Like, I'm going to go this other route. And then they just are like, then you don't even want to get better. Right. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, I have a friend right now whose husband's taking all this medicine and she's like, I don't even know if it's helping. It's not, it's just like masking the problem. It's
Mm-hmm.
not getting to the root cause of anything, but they don't want to get to the root cause of anything. They just want to throw medicine in your face. And then there's doctors like, no, we do. But at the same time, they don't. Like, they just, and I feel like, I know for myself, like if I was to go to a doctor, I'm like, I'm not taking anything you're giving me. Like, it just, unless I am like, there is no other option, I am going to check out other ways. I'm going to look at what I'm eating. I'm going to look at, like you meant, like sleep patterns. I'm going to go outside and get some sun. Like, people don't prescribe that. Like the current doctor that I just recently saw, he was like, you need sun. He's like,
Yeah.
look at my vitamin D levels. And my vitamin D levels were normal. And he goes, I don't want your vitamin D levels to be normal. I want them to be off the charts. And whereas like another doctor's like, ooh, that's dangerous. And then you wonder, like, who do you believe, right? And
Yeah.
how do you do what's right for you? So how hard was that to, especially when you mentioned a lot of people were telling, I mean, almost everybody was against you. So
Yeah.
how do you like shut that out? Because it's natural to feel that self-doubt when everybody else around you is giving you a totally different story.
That was the gaslighting. I mean, first we'll start with the system, how it was designed, right? So allopathic medicine is based off pharmacy, big pharma. It's based off name it, blame it, tame it, bill it, refill it. You identify a disease by a cluster of symptoms that's in the Merck manual. Your ICD-10 code determines what type of medications you get and what the insurance will or will not cover, right? They need a diagnosis. You can't leave a doctor's office without a diagnosis. That's why you see things like chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and all these things. We don't know what it is, but we need an ICD-10 code so we can get paid and prescribe and get reimbursed, right? It's like the conventional medical system's like the Legend of Zelda. You got to go on a quest, get your referrals, pass a level, get to another one. It's so siloed and compartmentalized. It's insane. Like, if you were really battling something metabolically speaking, it's going to take you a year or two to get properly diagnosed, if you do at all. But with functional medicine, you look at everything right off the bat, might cost a little bit up front, but you get to the root cause of dysfunction, you address it and you resolve it. Conventional medicine, like, God bless, I'll go into military medicine, best trauma in the world, right? But it's when you're dealing with gunshots and broken legs from jumping and training accidents, no one else I'd want in the world to fix me besides those people. But when it comes to health and wellness, they don't teach that in medical school. The military's job is to make sure you're deployable. Are you deployable? Yes or no? With this drug or with this surgery, I can make you deployable. That's checking the box. They're done. At that point, everything else is, if you're soft, you get some more human performance and wellness resources. But big army, hey, take your Motrin, see you later. You're good to our standard. You don't have cancer, you don't have AIDS, you don't have kidney, liver disease, HIV, you're fine. They don't look at hormones. They don't look at neurotransmitters. They don't look at inflammation markers, microbiome. They're not looking at any of that stuff. And because they don't want to open Pandora's box, I quote directly from every medical provider in the military that I've interacted with, right?
And I'll also caveat to that. civilian life too. It's
Yeah.
this, I mean, because most of my listeners are civilians, and it's the same.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the same thing. I don't want to spend extra time with you. I have other patients, and I want my kickback.
Turnover, right? You get graded by how many people you see a day, not how
Right.
many people resolve. That's why pain meds are like one of the biggest things. I give you a drug, your pain is better. I mark it as success in my charts, and by the insurance company and by my health practice, I look like a rock star, right? Even though you haven't resolved anything, you're masking it. It's the same thing with a car, a check engine light goes off. Oh, I'm just going to put tape over it. That's your medication, and you keep driving. Nothing changes, and then all of a sudden the wheels are falling off. It's frustrating, but I mean, I had to look at it the way I was able to get people to see it in a different way is turn military into medicine. If I planned and conducted operations the same way conventional medicine does medicine, I would be in jail, prison. I wouldn't be able to do it. It's like imagine I was in Afghanistan and I was going after a target and he's in this valley and I'm just going to be like, yeah, I'm just going to keep bombing until we get him. If that works, great, we'll stop bombing. But if not, we're just going to keep bombing until we get them. That's what conventional medicine does. Like, oh, you've got this symptom. We'll try this thing. If it works, great. Keep doing it. If it doesn't, we'll throw a dart at it and throw a new drug at it. And we're guessing, right? That's not precision medicine. And that's the direction medicine's going now, thank God, is towards precision medicine and looking at root cause dysfunction. People are rejecting conventional medicine. They know it's ineffective. When your number 3 cause of death in the United States is the healthcare industry, that tells you everything you need to know. If the airline industry killed as many people as medicine and botched procedures, nobody would fly. But your chances of going into a hospital and getting an infection or having the wrong drug given to you is way higher than dying in an airplane. And that's unacceptable at this day and age. And it comes to arrogance, ignorance, oversight, fatigue, being overworked, working for the insurance companies. That's all you can do. Doctors, for their defense, their hands are tied. It's like a trade union. They can only look at this body part. They can only use what's in this manual or in this formula, right? They can't go outside of that. And that's why functional medicine has the freedom of movement to do that. Instead of being a super specialist, you're a super generalist. And your food is your medicine, right? Like lifestyle and environmental factors. And I did a podcast for my buddy the other day, and I was going over it. I was like, look, if we know that over 90% of doctors' visits are stress related, which comes from your lifestyle and your environment, why aren't we embracing a form of medicine that focuses on lifestyle and environment?
Yeah.
If you live in a highly toxic home, you're going to be poisoned every single day you're in it, right? No matter what you do, talking to a psychologist, psychiatrist, or getting medicated, if you do not remove yourself from the source that's making you sick, you're never going to get better. You'll die slower, right? With all the medications. They'll keep you alive as long as you keep coming to the doctor's office, but they're not addressing the issue. And once people see that, they're like, oh, I have pain in my shoulder because it's misaligned. The joint space is off, or I've got an unresolved injury that I've been masking with medication. Hey, I go to see the right specialist. It gets fixed. The pain goes away. The blood flow returns and my body heals. And once you start doing that with high quality, medical providers, I'm never going back to polypharma. Like I'm not going to manage or mask anything. And that's where we are now. There's a paradigm shift in medicine, and it's great to be here. No more tilting windmills. Like, don't have to convince anybody this is a good thing anymore. I don't have to do any of that anymore. Now I just work one-on-one with clients, all day and help them advocate for themselves and make better decisions. And that's rewarding. That's, that was my purpose while I'm still on this planet. So it all worked out.
Yeah. Now you can see it, right? It's because I was deteriorating and all this stuff happened. And I had an adverse reaction to, I was listening to a doctor talk about like side effects and stuff like that. And he was like, well, we really don't even know. Like, were you going to have seizures already? Or was it from the medicine? And it's like, they just don't want to actually realize that medicine does cause lasting effects.
So think of GLP, right? Like any of like Wegovy, or a lot of people are getting gastroparesis right now and vision issues, like damage to their eyes. And they're still getting gaslit by doctors. Oh, it's, the risk is worth, stop that bullshit. If you get gastroparesis, you're screwed for life. It's happening so much and so frequently with those drugs right now. Nobody's talking about it. And I know two people with gastroparesis right now that have only been on this drug less than a year. That's something right there. It's like, okay, we didn't address metabolic dysfunction. Why do you have insulin resistance? Why do you have hormone imbalances? We're just going to give you a drug to address this without looking at the root cause. Mark my words on this one. We're going to look back at these drugs in the next few years and see massive lawsuits for the damage that these things did. And it's going to be like, oh, we were just going, best information we had at the time. Can't get it always right. It's the same story every time with every one of these drugs. Anything banned by the FDA is something that was approved by the FDA. Come to find out, yeah, the scientists lie. You get any results you want. We saw it with the pandemic. And it's like, we keep doing this. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Healthcare industry is not about health. It's about profits. And it's literally legally shareholders are the ones that are the priority, not the patient. There's laws for that companies will protect the shareholder over the consumer. That's a law. And people don't know that. But until that changes, our best interest is not going to be there where it needs to be for health and wellness. And I could do a whole podcast on that by itself.
What do you say to people when they're like, well, what would you say taking ownership of my health really means? And what would you say that I need to be doing for myself on knowing like what is the right thing for me? I guess if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, ownership of health, meaning it's no one else's responsibility to take care of this except me, unless it's an emergency and I can't do it, right? That's emergency medicine. But if I know, like, think of a weapon. Before I get issued a weapon in the military, I have to learn about the weapon, the components, how it functions, how to identify and correct malfunctions, how to disassemble it, reassemble it, and then what type of service life do I have for this thing? 10,000 rounds for an M4 in the barrel? We don't have that for us. And so we learn about everything else in the world except how to maintain and operate this right here. The most important piece of equipment you're ever issued in your entire life that you can't buy a new one, trade it in, lease it. This is it. This is all you get. Think about how much we learned from a child till now about this right here. Nothing, right? Except you are what you eat, which is actually pretty accurate, right? But other than that, there's no formal training. You don't get any type of education of how to fuel, how to recover, how to sleep. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
How to pick foods, what's dangerous, what's not dangerous. They don't do that. And why do you think they don't do that? Because if you're a consumer for life, they make money on you from the day you're born to the day you die. That's not a conspiracy. It's a fact. There's a reason certain chemicals and additives are put in foods to make them addictive, to make you crave them, and to make you consume more of them. MSG, aspartame, all of those things work off neurotransmitters in your body to make you feel good and want to consume more and drive dopamine levels through the roof. And so the same people that came from big tobacco went to big food. I believe it was in the early 80s when they switched. My dad worked for R.J. Reynolds Nabisco. Used to be Nabisco, got bought out by a tobacco company, and then they destroyed all the food lines. They put all that crap in the foods when they did that, when big tobacco took over. I'll never forget, like, the quality of food that changed. But nobody sees it, right? Like, you're starting to see it now because of social media. But before, it was just like, think of in the 70s and 80s, how many cigarette ads there were, and cigarettes are good for you. They're safe, doctor approved. Back at that, and it's like, we're doing the same thing. We just changed cigarettes to food, and we're being told the same crap. And people buy it, literally. It's frustrating, but once you teach people that, they never go back. They never look back and say, oh, screw that. And I could name a dozen chemicals or foods that people have caught on to. I'll use like triclosan for soaps, right? It's a pesticide. Why would you put pesticide in toothpaste, deodorants, soaps, all of this stuff, right? It's an endocrine disruptor, and it actually inhibits the production and synthesis of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. And we were putting in everything you touched. It's bisphenol A, xenoestrogens, all these things we're being exposed to, and we're wondering why are we having all these kids with developmental issues? Well, there's over 80,000 man-made chemicals in the environment now, and most of them are endocrine disrupting. And your endocrine system is the one responsible for development. Again, why is all this stuff happening? And then you go back and look at the basics and you're like, oh, okay, why are we overcomplicating this issue? And it goes back to food, it goes back to medicine, water, environmental exposures, all those things, we're being soaked in it 24/7. And yeah, it's going to have effect on the metabolism. And why do you think we're seeing all these diseases skyrocket at the same rate as the introduction to all these chemicals, right? That's not correlation, there's causation in there. And if you look back at Mount Sinai's research and you look at, they were studying the umbilical cords of newborns, there are over 300 to 500 man-made chemicals in a newborn already before they even touch anything outside of the hospital. That was just what mom had in her transferring to the kid. That is insane, right? Like unacceptable. And if you want to protect your offspring, you have to stop exposing them to all these man-made chemicals that are out there. It's that simple. And we're going to see it in the next 10 years.
Hey, quick pause before we dive back in. You know how we talk about building resilience, confidence, and mindset? There's a nonprofit helping kids do exactly that. Every mission starts with a story, but right now, 1 in 3 kids in America feels like they don't belong, and only 30% read at grade level. At Empower Lit, we're changing that one school at a time. Through author visits, literacy camps, team publishing programs, and Cosmo the Alien on YouTube, we help kids discover confidence through storytelling. When you give a monthly donation, you're not just donating, you're helping a child believe in themselves, their words, and their worth. Join the mission at empowerlitnonprofit.org because belief is where every great story begins. All right, now back to the episode. Let's get into it. My family's like, you're so extreme because like, I remember I forgot like my shampoo and there was a hotel shampoo. I'm like, I can't use that. And my family was like, I'm like, he said my hair will just be greasy for the day. And I'm okay with that. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I much rather, I said, the cost of me using that shampoo is too high for me. Like for you, it might not be. For me, it's too high. Right. And they're like,
the best you can, right? You can't get away from it. It's
can't. It's everywhere, right? And I'm just, and you have to like I get it. Like I know that even though I'm getting like this air chilled organic chicken, it's still wrapped in plastic, right? And it's like, my gosh, like you just like you're trying, right? But then at the same time, it's like, okay, I just got to minimize it, right? Yeah. But the thing is like I also feel like we're so indoctrinated, like. Where also we don't want to make a change because, we are creatures of habit. Yeah. And we'll be like, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it. And then it becomes a month, a year or whatever, right? And we don't actually, and then it gets too late. And then you're like 60 and here you are like, about to retire. I just know because I'm in Myrtle Beach with the retirees. Yeah. And it's so funny because the comments that I get all the time are like, cause I'll be like, oh, let's go for a meeting on a walk. Let's go for a walk in a meeting. Right. Or, they go to a restaurant and I don't eat because it's coated in seed oil and I'll watch them. But they're like, wow, like, why are you like this when you look like that and you're very healthy and you're very energized? I'm like, you don't understand. I said, it's the opposite. I said, because of what I do and what I eat, that is why I have the energy that I have and I look like this. And I was like, I mean, that's really it. But the thing is like, then it's like, they want to make the change, but they don't want to make the change. You know what I'm saying? Like it's too much for them, and then it gets to a point where they are sick and then they can't go back, right? You can't go back. And I want to know, like, how do you bridge the gap between awareness and actually changing your daily habits?
Okay, so that's got to be intrinsic. I mean, as a health coach, I'll tell you that right away. Change is temporary, transformation is, I'm not going back there, right? To get people to change, they've got to have buy-in. It's got to be, why is this important to me? Typically it comes to because my child, my wife, or whatever it is, it's got to be tied to something like that. If they don't have a reason to, they're not going to. No matter what you say to them, it takes catastrophe to implement a big change, right? And it's usually the heart attack, the cancer, or whatever it is. I've even seen people with cancer that beat cancer go back to eating all the same crap that causes cancer and the same type of lifestyle with alcohol, especially in first responder community. I'll leave it at that. Even the military.
I'm laughing because I used to work for Penny Marshall and she had cancer at one point and she beat it. All right. And the moment she got surgery and beat cancer, she lit a cigarette up in the hospital.
Yep.
I know. We were like, what are you doing? I mean, I wasn't there. I wasn't working for her, but I mean, everybody around her was like, what? Not to
I,
mention you're in the hospital, can't light up a cigarette.
I think that's pretty badass. You work for Penny Marshall. I remember watching that show as a kid.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but no, I mean, that's it. People are creatures of habit. And
Hmm.
if it's addictive, they're not going to give it up. And they'll make every excuse in the world why it's like diet soda, aspartame, Diet Coke. The President of the United States is addicted to it. It's highly addictive, but it's also severely toxic. It's like, no, I can't give up that vice. No, no, I don't care. Or cheese or something. Something's addictive when they're like, I don't care. I'm not giving that up. But it'll be the heart attack, the brain tumor, or something that gets them there, and that says, okay, I need to change course. I see it every day in our community where people retire and then they come out and then they balloon out. They're like poof. The biggest way to fend all of the effects of all the bad shit in the life we do is exercise, sweating, hydration, being in the sunlight, doing all those things. When you stop doing those, your body's like a magnet and says, come on in, oxidative stress. Like, come on, DNA damage, mitochondrial dysfunction. And then all of a sudden it's like fast forward, all these people that were in really good shape all of a sudden got the bloated belly, the inflammation, the arthritis, sleep apnea, all these things. It's like fast forward, stress, environmental, lifestyle. It goes back to what they're consuming psychologically and physiologically, what type of environment they're in, whether it's indoors all day sitting on their butt or out exercising, mountain biking, skiing, surfing, or whatever it is. And you see the changes. You can go to state by state and look where there's healthy populations that mountain bike and surf. They all look fit. And then go to these places where it's restaurants, fast food, fried food. Everyone's obese and overweight, like where we live in North Carolina. Barbecue, this, all the, Krispy Kreme. You can see it. It's the environment of where you were in the culture. And
Hmm.
once people break out of that and understand, like, if you grow up eating processed foods, mac and cheese and cookouts and all that, I'll beat a dead horse on this one, but people think that because when they grew up as kids, especially people 50 and above, that food they were eating then is not what they're eating now. But they'll always say, well, I ate it since I was a kid. I was fine as a kid, but now they're not. We're not eating the same thing, but look how they eat. And it's psychologically rooted in us to eat those foods because of how it makes us feel, which is the dopamine hit, which is, the blood sugar, all those things in there, they're addictive as hell. And when you detox someone off food, doing an elimination diet, it's like they have to empty out, their entire house has to be emptied out of ketchup. Ketchup will seem like friggin' dessert after 2 weeks of not eating sugar. But you'll find out what food addiction really is. And then once you clean your body of that, you will not want to eat it. When you eat shit food after that, you're like, I feel like you'll bloat up, swell, sticky skin, smell. Like you'll be like, oh my God, this shit is poison. And you'll never
Yeah.
go back to that once you clean out. But tying back to your original point, it's got to be intrinsic. What's in it for me? Why does it matter? In working with civilian clients, it's always, I want to age optimally, have a better quality of life, and enjoy what I got left. And it's like, okay, well, what do you think's standing in your way? And it's like, oh yeah, like I drink too much, I don't exercise, my sleep is horrible, never had a sleep study, and just go down the list. And then, hey man, what do you think I should do? Well, I'm not going to tell you what you should do, but I can tell you that exercising regularly, walking, going to a gym, meditating, yoga, mindfulness, sleep hygiene, I give them all the tools in one variable at a time and just be like, hey, start walking every morning between 8 and 11, get some sunlight in your face. Try that for a couple of weeks, come back and tell me how you feel. Once they start doing it, they're like, oh my God, I feel so much better. I have less pain in my joints. I have more energy. I sleep better. It's like, oh, imagine that. And I was like, okay, let's address the food. And so one variable at a time again. And then you start doing that. And once they see the benefits of it, they're more apt to stay and continue that lifestyle transformation, not change. It's rewarding. That's one of the best parts of the program I started, is to be able to give people those tools and watch them do it. But I can tell you right now, until it is that intrinsic value, one ear out the other. They've got to be ready to receive and want to change. I can't save or fix anybody, right? They have to do it themselves. I can provide them the tools and guide them along the way, but I can't provide that reason for them wanting to do that. That has to come intrinsic. That's the big thing. And then if you can get to that as a coach, as a doctor or something, like, hey, why is this important to you? Tell me what your vision is of what you want to accomplish with your health. Hey, I want to be pain free. I want to be able to walk 4 miles. Okay, what are some little things you think you can do to, walk half a mile or whatever? It's just, oh, I didn't even think of that. And you help them do that. And then they take it from there. They're off to the races. It just needs that reaffirming in them, telling them like, hey man, like you can do this, right? Like you've got this. But a lot of people, when they're physiology and psychology and they're sick, they don't want to do anything. They lose the motivation to live. And we see it every day in society. Suicide numbers are skyrocketing, right? And it's pain and suffering. And pain and suffering comes from poor lifestyle and environmental factors. That's it. And loss, and psychologically, right? Loss of mission, purpose, focus, and identity. You lose that, you're just going to circle the drain. You're done. So it's getting people to understand that all these things are tied together. Food is medicine. Everything you eat, it's either fighting disease or fueling it. It's either fighting inflammation or fueling it. It's either providing happiness or making you feel like shit, right? You eat something that's bad, you say, man, I feel like crap. It's because you ate crap. And that's literally how simple it is. But once people figure it out, it's you don't have to convince them of anything. They run with it. So that's the cool part.
When you said like one value at a time, right? Like you'd want, how long before you introduce something else?
Usually a couple weeks, right? I mean, like I'll use elimination diet. After 2 weeks of detoxing from food, like to see what your body's reacting to, then you say, hey, go ahead, eat a slice of bread, see how you feel, or eat some pasta. And they're like, oh my God, I was bloated, or drink a beer and see how you feel after that, after 2 weeks of not doing it. And boom, they'll see the effects of what it is. Like gluten, stuffy nose, right? Ringing in the ears, puffy skin, puffy face, bags under the eyes. You'll know it immediately. Like beer, I can't even smell beer. It makes me sick to my stomach because the gluten was making, if I drank a beer, I'd be a beach ball. And when I figured it out, I was like, oh, it's just disgusting. And now if I eat bread, I have to make sure it's like 10 times the amount of fiber that's in it, or it's gluten free or glyphosate free. But, if you eat bread overseas, I'm fine. No issues eating food overseas. I could eat pizza, bread all day long, Germany, everywhere else. I don't get any bloating whatsoever. It's all the shit that's in our food here, all the additives. That's it, man. You'll figure it out one small change at a time. And then once people get the confidence, they're off to the races. They're going for it. Once they start reading, it's like, I don't have to tell you, like once you start figuring this out, you're going to be hooked. And you can be like, I can't believe they've been doing this, and bottled water or processed food or whatever it is.
It's a rabbit. It's a rabbit hole. It really is. And it's so funny. I have this video I sent out to some family. My nephew's 3.5, and we were grocery shopping, him and my mom, and we gave him we were trying to get cookies for him, essentially, and we're reading it, and he's like, we're reading the ingredients, and he's like watching us. He's like a little sponge. So I give him the box, and I'm like, read the ingredients. Like, you see any seed oils in there? You see any chemicals? And he's looking, and he's like, no, this is great, right? But he's 3.5. He can't read, but he just wanted the cookies because he saw the picture, right?
Yeah.
And then it was like, no, that's not a buy, right? And then I found one that was. So I handed to him, like, read this one, and all of a sudden he looks at it and goes, there's no seed oil. And it was just so cute because he's 3.5, and I'm just trying to teach him like some of the stuff. But it is definitely a rabbit hole, and it's a dangerous one in terms of, I mean, there is no going back, right? I mean, I did Lion's diet to do like a total elimination. It was just meat. And then I introduced some food one at a time for a week. And you're really able to tell, like, okay, like, there's a flare up, or this happened, or, oh, I didn't feel good, or anything like that. But I always find it funny when people are, how would you say and again, we talked about the awareness a little bit, but and I get it. They have to want to do it. But I mean, even for myself, sometimes there is a certain willpower it takes when I am like laying down in bed and my phone's there. I turn my phone off, but I could turn it back on. It's a button. And I'm just looking at it and I'm like, and then sometimes I'm like, I'm just going to read a chapter in a book. And I know, like, don't do it. Don't touch the phone. It doesn't matter if you have your red light glasses on and the melatonin is kicking in. It doesn't matter. Like, just turn it off, right? How do you physically deal with, I mean, and what advice do you have for someone that might be struggling with that discipline of Because it's an addiction, right?
First comes the awareness. Set a timer for your phone, like social media or Instagram, whatever it is. All of them have timers, so you can put a limit on it for the day. A lot of people, they're not aware of how much time they actually spend on their devices. I work from my device right here. And so I have notifications for when I have clients signing up or requests coming in. But I put my phone on do not disturb at night. So after 8 o'clock p.m., I'm on do not disturb. Once I calm my nervous system down, I was able to read books again and actually sit there and like not get distracted and do anything. So I started reading more books. I'll call it foo-foo, whatever you want, but I'll take a warm bath and read a book for like 40 minutes till the water gets cold, so my core temperature comes down, because you get the heat and the cold, but you don't want to go to bed with a high core temp. So I use the cold water in the tub to get my body temperature down and my heart rate down. And then I'll make sure my thermostat's 67, 68 degrees. Then I'll go in bed, and then, everyone's got to look at a couple things, make sure you're good for your calendar for tomorrow. And I'll check my messages real quick, like on social media for Instagram. And then I put it down and then I go to bed. I can tell you right now, from implementing all those sleep hygiene things, my heart rate variability's doubled since I retired back in April. And it's from getting to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, making sure my core temperature's down, make sure I don't eat a big meal before bed. If I do eat before bed, something that digests in 30 minutes, carbohydrates, and not put a lot of fatty food or a lot of protein in before bed. Because if you do that, you're going to be churning all night trying to digest that. Your heart rate's going to be up. It's going to kill your recovery. So using Whoops, right? I got my Garmin. You follow it to a T. Your routine is everything when it comes to sleep and recovery. I've watched the results skyrocket. I feel better. Never in my life, since I can remember, am I recovering as fast as I am now. And before, my watch would be like, no, you rode yesterday. I'm a huge mountain biker. You can't ride today. Now, every day I ride, I'm recovered by the next day. I'm 49 years old. That's unheard of. And I'm in better shape now, cardiovascular wise, than I was 5-10 years ago. And that's from stress management and recovery and nutrition. And you're not supposed to do that when you retire and get older. You're supposed to decline fast, right? But it's implement what you learn. That's controlling your controllables. And that's what I teach. It's like, hey, you can't control everything in your environment, but you can control how you react to those things in your environment. And that's through personal protective lifestyle, personal protective nutrition. And that's it. It's pretty simple. You can't avoid everything. There's going to be times when you travel in an airport and you have to eat something crappy. But it's like, do damage control. What's the least crappy thing in the airport I can eat, right? Or your case, the shampoo. A lot of the, go back to that. You don't need to be washing your hair every single night. It's one reason why we kill our hair. But if you are going to do those things, right? Like I tell people, get little travel kits, whether it's food, shampoo, baby wipes, or whatever it is. Make sure you have like your little travel pack of doing that. And I do that everywhere I go. I have my little travel pack of things that I need. Make good decisions. That's all it comes down to. Make better decisions every day. Give yourself some grace. Don't beat yourself up. Like you said, if you start going down rabbit holes, you're going to be afraid to drink or eat anything.
Yeah, it's dangerous. It's dangerous. You have to, you're right. I want to ask you about like the stress management, because you did talk about that a little bit. What are some ways that you give to people for stress management? Because that's a huge one that really disrupts the body. Like,
Yeah. First one is acknowledging it, because I was in denial about stress forever. I thought I was like, oh, but on all these badass training programs, I've got stress dialed. I'm the master out of it. I just distracted myself from it, and through adrenaline, dopamine, and cortisol, right? All things fun. And I had to learn how to sit with things when I was getting stressed. Like, hey, I can't control this. You're going to be fine. It's literally rewiring the brain. When you've been stress inoculated and traumatized, it's easier said than done, because you're on the rumination, you're on the hamster wheel. And to get out of that hamster wheel, you have to feel safe. And it's always going back to, hey, I made it through this, I'll be okay. Or, hey, when your brain has uncertainty, unpredictability, fear, danger, any of those things, it fills the gaps in, right? Catastrophizing. It'll go to the worst case scenario and come up with every scenario you think's happening. In reality, you know nothing. And it's like you're assuming all these things are going on. So that is mental gymnastics, to be like, hey, man, I don't know what's happening right now, but I'm just going to wait and talk to that person and see what's really going on before I come up with this, novel in my mind of what I think is going on. because when you've been near death so many times and your job is to run into death and destruction, yeah, you're going to catastrophize and come up with some worst case scenario. It's called contingency planning, right?
Yeah.
And you got to learn how to shut that off. And that's transitioning out of a high op tempo, high risk career into something that's civilian again. You have to learn how to break throttle modulate, like really learn how to be like, okay, this is not, I'm making a bigger deal than what this is. It's easy because when you're in react mode, not respond mode, because you've been programmed that way your entire military career, you're not supposed to think when gunshots are happening, right? You automatically react. That's your autonomic nervous system. And they fine tune that with their training. But if you take that type of reactability into day-to-day life with your family and your loved ones, it has the opposite effect of what you want, right? That's the whole road rage thing. Fuck around, find out. Like, you can't do that in a civilian setting. It doesn't work. You go to jail. So you really have to, when you regulate the nervous system and you start paying attention to heart rate variability and breathing and all those things, once you get the nervous system to calm down, you go back to respond mode, not react mode. And I coach people that all the time with wearables to show them that, hey, when you're stressed out, take a deep breath, exhale, do a little bit of box breathing, whatever you want to do, and just slow things down a little bit, because when you're in survival mode, you're not getting the deep thought that you want. That whole prefrontal cortex shuts down. You're in the amygdala. And when you're in the amygdala, it's lizard brain. And that's fighting, feeding, and fornicating. And in our community, that's standard of living, right? That's lizard brain. That's survival mode. And when you see people behaving a certain way, you already know where they're at mentally. And when you can help them identify it and acknowledge it, then they're like, okay, I know why I'm behaving this way. I know why I do these things. I need to get back to this. And when you can show somebody, whether it's through mindfulness practice, yoga, meditation, breathing, or ketamine therapy, psychedelic assisted therapy, any of those things, and you show them what normal feels like for the first time, they're like, holy crap, dude. Like, how did I live that way, right? Like, how have I been doing this for so long? No wonder why I'm falling apart. And then once they regulate that nervous system, guess what happens in the body? It goes from being catabolic to anabolic again. And that's where repair happens. And no matter what you're doing in your life, how good you're eating, how good you're sleeping, you think you're sleeping, if your nervous system is dysregulated and waiting for threats and things to happen in your environment, your body's always going to be on react mode, which is your sympathetic nervous system overactivated, parasympathetic underactivated, and that is catabolic. That's wear and tear and destruction. That's insulin resistance, inflammation, cognitive decline, right? ADHD type stuff, anxiety, depression. All of that happens from an overstimulated, chronically stimulated sympathetic nervous system. And think about what that system controls, right? When you're nervous, right, anxious, your body's saying, hey, I need glucose elevated because I have to respond to a threat. My mind needs to be paying attention to every single thing going on in my environment because I'm in danger. Hey, I'm not going to deep sleep because there's bad things out there that I need to be paying attention to. Hey, I don't need to be digesting and absorbing right now. I need to flush my system out because I could get injured and die from sepsis. So literally your body is preparing for a fight and it's flushing you out. You're not digesting and absorbing. Your insulin resistance is going through the roof because you've been at a heightened state of alert for so long. Chronic stress is the biggest killer.
Oh
And
my God. Yeah.
once you get people to understand how the body works, it's an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation's normal behavior. And so once you teach people how the body works with both sides of the nervous system, you're like, oh, the brake pedal, that thing over there is rest, digest, feed, and breathe. You do all your recovery in your bedroom, right? So why is sleep so important? Why is relaxation so important? Why is anti-inflammatory food so important? Why are fats, the building blocks of all your hormones, so important? And so once you do that, they're like, holy shit, dude, it's like driver's ed. No one ever taught me how to drive this thing before. But now that I've learned, I'm never going back to living in the blind, right? I'm not,
Right.
like, you're driving blind if you don't know how to regulate that system. And what happens with chronic stress? Immune dysfunction, right? You suppress immune function with chronic stress. So your immune system's your force field. If you're chronically stressed, guess what you don't have? A robust immune system. You're going to get an overreactive immune system or an underreactive immune system, and you're going to get disease. That simple. And when you learn how to balance and get people out of survival mode back to living, their body responds appropriately and they start feeling better and behaving better. And something we're never taught and something you're not going to be seeing in TV ads. Now, the drug companies aren't going to tell you how to regulate your nervous system. It's not there. Do some reading, find out about the vagus nerve and why deep breathing is so effective and why you yawn. It's naturally lowering your heart rate and setting you up for sleep because that's what it's doing, right? And it's basic. It's so simple. But once you figure it out, you're like, why do we overcomplicate this shit?
Yeah. I mean, it really comes down to awareness and um, the education that you do. The having that open mind. Like ever since I lost my hearing, I always had like this really open mind to lifestyle, and I tried everything to know what was best for me. Like living in LA, when all this was happening, I was like, oh, maybe I need to be a vegan or vegetarian, and maybe I need to do this, and I'll try this. And then I met this doctor who was like, you're so unhealthy, but you think you're healthy because you're being taught this one way. Try this. And then my body started to react to it, but it was just being in a positive way. But it was just being able to be opened, because sometimes we're so indoctrinated that we're not open, or we don't want to be opened, or there's a fear there of, am I going to hurt myself even more, right? Am I going to do damage by getting off of this medicine versus staying on this medicine, right? Am I going to do more damage putting, eating the meat versus eating the plant-based meat, like what, on how you're thinking, right? So it's really just like the education, the awareness, and not having that rigidness in terms of, and I get it though, you're indoctrinated and it's really, really hard to see another way, right? Because we want to stay safe, and also, we don't want to do long-term damage, but we don't realize we're already doing long-term damage,
Yeah.
But it was very fascinating talking to you. I do want to ask you, what would you have to say to our listeners on the show that what they can do on a daily basis to strengthen their mental fitness to tackle challenges that inevitably come their way?
Learn how to sit with your discomfort, right? Learn how to be aware, look introspectively, don't look outward. As humans, we always like to want to help everyone else and to forget about our own stuff, but be able to look introspective and reflect. Have an honest conversation with yourself about what part am I playing in my health or sickness, right? What am I doing that I could do better? Or what am I doing that I know is bad for me? And be honest, right? Like have that honest assessment. We all do it. Even knowing all this stuff. So once in a while you want to go snack a cookie, right? Like whatever it is, you want to go do that thing, but it's like, okay, like don't fall back into it, but just have a little bit of grace with yourself, but self-awareness, introspective, learning how to reflect and look inward and not try to blame everything in your life on something or somebody else. When you do that and that ego goes away, you can really dial in on learning how to manage your health, especially with your mind, right? Because you were saying something before that really resonates with me. It's like, how do we indoctrinate people? Like, how do we control their thoughts? And when you're in fear, guess what you're not doing? You're not thinking, you're reacting. And so fear overrides the part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, that you need for deep thought. And you live off the amygdala. And what do you think the news, media, advertisements, everything's doing is scaring the shit out of you. So
the doctor, you don't take this medicine, you're going to die. You're never going to get better. I mean, right there, that's the line that really gets everybody. Right?
It's for a reason. They know exactly what they're doing. And that's the thing. Don't live in fear. Take control of that. Once you're out of fear, you feel safe, you're at peace. Guess what works? That mental clarity, getting that, hey, I know what's going on here. But as long as they keep you in fear and keep you guessing and keep you uncertain or unsafe, you're never going to access the part of your brain you need to heal yourself. And that's one of the biggest things. Step number one in my program is to help regulate the nervous system so people can get off the hamster wheel. And once they do that, they get clarity on what's been, I'm talking 20, 30 years of patterns that they've developed that they can't figure out why they're doing. And then they calm that thing down. They're like, oh my God, I know what I'm doing this and I know why. And then they change. And that's the transformation that happens. But if you're living in the limbic system, you're not going to be making good decisions. And so find your peace, Everything that's stressing you out in your life is something you said yes to at some point in time. Learn how to cut the fat. Right? That was one of the best things, that the silver lining in the pandemic was people had time to reflect about the shitty life that they were living and what they were putting themselves through. I'll take that all day long. That's it. That's all you need, time to reflect. So anything you can do, look inward, not outward. That's it. Take responsibility, take ownership.
Thank you. And thanks for being here. What's the name of your company for if anyone wants to reach out to you?
So Task Force Dagger Special Operations Foundation. If you go to taskforcedagger.org, you learn about the foundation and what we do. Yeah, that's what I do on a daily basis, help people overcome these challenges. So like I said, go back to the beginning. What I thought was the biggest curse ended up being my blessing. So try to find the silver lining in things and positive, constructive life, man. That's it.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate talking with you.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Everyone listening, please like, share, comment, subscribe, become a Substack member for all the extra goodies that only our Substack members get. And I will see you guys all next Wednesday.